Welcome to the Piston Fanatic. I am your host, Dave Dalton, and I'm excited to share my passion and perspective of our Detroit Pistons as we go on this fantastic voyage together. I've been a diehard Piston fan since the days of Dave Bing and Bob Lanier. I've also been the varsity basketball coach of a very successful program in northern Michigan. Well, I appreciate every one of you for listening. Please subscribe and like. And Piston fans, we have some breaking news. We have a trade. The Detroit Pistons have traded Marvin Bagley III and Isaiah Livers, along with 2 second-round picks. One of the picks is going to be in 2025, and one of them is going to be in 2026. And both those trades are complicated. They're not Detroit's pick, but they could go any of three different directions. So it could be the worst or the best of three different teams. So second-round picks are always passed around like that and traded from team to team constantly in the future for future picks. So it'll be interesting how that pans out, but it really, it's not much of significance right now, but we are trading those two for Danilo Gallinari and Mike Muscala from the Washington Wizards, who we play tomorrow, which is ironic. And both of those guys are on expiring contracts. So this deal is basically to get rid of Marvin Bagley's next year's contract. We owe him $12 million next year. So that's really seems to be the driving force or the only reason for this trade. And it's kind of interesting because most of us thought, why did we give him 3 years, and not just 2 years and a team option? So, and a lot of people thought that he got overpaid. But I like Marvin. I thought he's a great offensive player, and he's I think a more than adequate backup in the league. And so they have their center got injured. The Wizards center got injured, and Daniel Gafford. And so I think they have definitely room for him to get some opportunities, and I wish him good luck. And Isaiah Livers, I loved Isaiah Livers, and I was often critical. I was angry that we played him sometimes instead of playing Asar. And, I feel bad that Livers was always injured, and he was a really good shooter, but he couldn't shoot. He never shot well for the Pistons. So, his contract was only like $1.8 million, and so it was going to be up at the end of this year, and we could have extended him. But now now that'll be the Wizards' option to do that. I always thought he would be a good guy to have, like your 13th guy on your team. You have to have 14 or 15 guys on your team roster, and I thought that he's such a good guy, and he's a connector, and he talks on defense, and he's a smart player, and I think everybody liked him, and he's good luck, Isaiah Livers. And I feel bad because here's what happened. These guys walk in, they come to practice early today, they get in and do some individual work, and then they walk into practice and they find out they're traded. And now they got to all of a sudden go to their teammates and talk to their teammates and say goodbye. And, some of these guys have been together like 3 years, and I know they get friendships and they get close to each other, and it just lets you show how much of a business the NBA is. But these guys now, they have to get on an airplane. They have to fly and get a place to stay. I'm sure obviously they'll stay in a hotel, but then they got to move all their stuff, and they don't know how long are they going to be in Washington. And it just sends up, and they're just young guys. They're just, Marvin's only 24 years old. He's been around forever, but he's just a youngster. So it does, there's a scene in Moneyball, and there's Billy Beane was the general manager. It was a true story based on the Oakland A's, and this is baseball, and he goes to his manager. His manager has this player that they keep playing, and the general manager doesn't want the manager to play him because he's not efficient. The analytics show that he's a negative player. And so he goes into him and says, "You're not going to play him anymore." Brad Pitt, who played Billy Beane, says, "You're not going to play him anymore because I traded him." So I think, that maybe that, it's going to be a factor with, I don't know if that crossed Troy Weaver's mind so that Monty can't play Livers anymore, and so the minutes will go to Asar, hopefully, and even Kevin Knox. So here's my opinion on Kevin Knox. I think Kevin Knox, he's 24. He's not making, he's making the minimum, and I would sign him. I would sign him to at least a 3-year contract, and you could have the third year be a team option and give him $5 million a year or some, low figure like that. And he had no team. He started the first month of the season, nobody wanted him. And he's shown some really good signs of playing for us. And you could, even if he was our, third or fourth wing, to have on our team, there's never enough wings. We don't have enough. And so I think that would be a good move for us. But anyway, like I said, we're playing the Wizards tomorrow. And ironically, Gallinari's brother is a player development coach for the Pistons, but we might even buy out Gallinari. It's hard to say, but both those guys can shoot. I'm not sure how much they're going to play. They might put Muscala in there. Gallinari can't guard anybody anymore. He was kind of a 3-4. Now he's kind of a 5 because he can't guard any 4s. And Muscala is not quick. He's 6'10", but Gallinari's 35. He's been averaging 7 points a game, and Muscala's 32, and he's 6'10", but he's only averaging 4 points a game and 3 rebounds. But they're, I'm sure playing really limited minutes, even though they're on, the third worst team in the NBA. So, it'll be interesting to see how everything plays out tomorrow. I'm not sure if any of those guys would play tomorrow anyway once the trade has to get officially approved, and I think probably players have to have physical, so I'm sure that none of those players would be playing tomorrow. So, it's just a true thing about players being traded and how hard it is on their lives and things. But anyway, we're going to talk about DeJounte Murray and possibly the Pistons trading for him. So even on Yahoo Sports, they were talking about the trade, and they said that he would. One of the guys said, Dan Devine or Jake Fisher, I can't remember which one, said that their pick for him would be to be traded to the Pistons. So there opens a big thing. We would almost have to certainly give up Jaden Ivey, and I love Jaden Ivey, and I think Jaden Ivey has so much potential. But we do need some players that are a little bit more mature and a little bit older and are a little bit more developed. And so that would be a reason for doing that. If we don't make the deal, I will not be disappointed. The hardest thing for me with Jaden Ivey is Monty Williams. And, Monty says some things, even just after last game, that about using him more and letting him play on the ball some even. But again, we never can trust what Monty says. We just got to only wait and see what he actually does. So DeJounte Murray is only 27. He's 6'5", averages 21 points a game, 4.6 rebounds, which is really good. And for a guard, 5 assists, shooting 47%, and best of all, 39% on threes. And he is a great defensive player. So in 2022, he played for the Spurs. He played on the All-Star game as a real young player, and he led the league in steals that year. So, the thing is, he fits great with Cade, and I think Ivey does too, but Murray is best at guarding the ones. And so Cade can play even the one more, and Murray can play the one, even though it hasn't worked out great with Trae Young. That's why they would be getting rid of him. But the Hawks are a mess. So the Hawks are 15-23, really a disappointment for them. They're 3-7 in their last 10 games, and they got a whole bunch of guys. They said everybody's open for trade except Jalen Johnson and Trae Young. So we'll see. I'm really confident that somebody's going to end up getting him in a trade, and maybe it'll be us. But we got lots of options, and it's interesting what else we would have to give up besides Ivey, because we're not going to get him just for Jaden Ivey. I don't know if we're going to have to trade. I think we can trade one first-round future pick, maybe 2029, and I'm not sure if we would do that, but I don't know what else that we have that they would want. Also, the other interesting thing is, will they want a SAR? And would we trade a SAR? Would we rather trade, who knows? But I guess if we would want to trade Ivey if we got Murray, because then that would fill the other guard spot. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting. This trade deadline coming up is really going to be fascinating, and whatever happens. But it's interesting. Bagley, we gave up not that much for him, but now we're trading him again to get that third year off his contract that maybe we shouldn't have ever given him. But what's going to happen now? Weissman's probably going to get to play a lot more, and I don't know. That kind of sets us up. Is Bogey more apt to get traded? I thought after the last game when he was sitting on the bench, I hadn't heard anything about injuries, but he was sitting there and not playing, and they said it's a calf strain. So if that's the same calf that kept him out the first 20 games of the season, is he going to be out for a long time now? And he had been on fire, and his trade value had just been going up, theoretically at least. And so we'll see what happens. Hopefully it's just a minor thing and that it was just a precautionary thing. I hope that Cade plays tomorrow, and unless he's, if he's showing that he's 100% ready to go, I hope he plays. But there's a lot of teams in the NBA that are up and down, and there's a lot of teams that are desperate right now, including like the Lakers. The Lakers are 19-21. They came off that in-season tournament. They won it, and everybody was all pumped up for them. They were all pumped up, and now 3-7 the last 10 games, and they are just a mess. And so they're going to have to make some moves out of desperation because, again, we're not as desperate. We're not on this timeline. LeBron's, his timeline, his time is ticking. He's not. How many more years does he have left that they have him? And so they have to make some move somewhere along the line. And same thing. Toronto, they're probably going to make some moves, but the Hawks, like I said, they got to make some moves. The Nets are a sinking ship. They're 16-22 and 3-7. And the Bulls are 19-22. But the Bulls are the opposite. Ironically, the Bulls have picked up. They're 19-22, but they've won 6 out of their last 10 games. So the Jazz, who we just barely lost in overtime, they're up to 21-20. So they won 8 of their last 10 games. And it's just fascinating that there's all these ups and downs in the NBA that we see. And Steve Kerr, the Warriors, they are falling apart, and they got beat by 36 the other night. And Steve Kerr said, it's just here. These guys are world champs. These guys are world champs multiple times, and they've lost their confidence and they've lost their edge and their spirit. And Steve Kerr acknowledged that and how easy it is. And so that's what happened with our Detroit Pistons. Not only they lose, but they're all these young players, and they've lost their spirit and their confidence. But they didn't lose it, against the Rockets Friday night. They played with spirit and energy and some confidence, I think. And so I hope that continues. It's not probably going to be every night, but that's what Kerr said. It's hard when you've lost that. You've lost your edge, and then all of a sudden you got to play all these great teams. Everybody in the NBA is good. But just as interesting, we get so up and down, and we think about how bad our team is, and we're the worst team in the league. So I'm not saying that we're not. But New Orleans last year, they were like one of the top teams in the West around January, and then Zion got hurt, and then they just plummeted down the standings and were terrible. And this year, everybody was questioning them and how bad they were, and is Zion a player and Zion not a player? Now, all of a sudden, they're 24-16, and they won 7 of their last 10 games. So it's a roller coaster ride in the NBA. There's so many good teams, and the Pacers, they've won a whole bunch of games lately, and their record is really good. And so it's just the NBA is a hard league. It's hard to win a game. And anyway, I just wanted to get on and talk about the trade and talk about what you think about trading for DeJounte Murray and this Piston trade. I don't know how much. It's not going to make any difference for this year, I don't think. The difference between, I think Bagley was better than Wiseman probably, especially offensively. But we're keeping Wiseman, so maybe we'll end up having to need another trade. Maybe we're going to trade Nick Claxton's a free agent. But, of course, I don't know how much money we'd want to give Nick Claxton when we have Jalen Duren. But, obviously, we would need a backup center. So, anyway, I just wanted to get on for a minute and tell you about the breaking news about the trade. But please subscribe and like. Be the reason that somebody feels cared for. And go Pistons.